to Lift, Lighten, and Lead with Legacy Contracts. Whether this is your first time listening or you're returning for more, we're glad you're here. This is a space for attorneys who want more than just efficiency. You want clarity, purpose, and lasting impact in the way that you practice law, serve your clients, and lead your firm. Our mission on this platform is to simply lift the burden, lighten the load, and help you lead with clarity. Through practical insights, thoughtful guidance, and honest conversations, we explore what it truly takes to build not just a better firm, but a better way to work. So if that's the kind of growth that you're after, you're in the right place. So in today's episode number 2, we're going to be diving into why rest may feel uncomfortable for high-performing professionals, especially attorneys, and how reframing it can change not just your energy, but the way that you lead your firm. So if you read our latest blog titled Rest as Rebellion, Reframing Efficiency in a Culture of Exhaustion, this episode will really go into the heart of the conversation behind that blog post, where we unpack what it feels like to live this out in real time. So I want to start out by talking about how exhaustion kind of became like a badge of honor in not just the legal realm, but in society as we know it. A term that I've heard that's been repeated a lot is the microwave society, where everything gets done pretty quickly. People expect you to be available 24/7. They expect responses to be fast, emails to be immediate, and for there really to be like no boundaries when it comes to people having access to you and how quickly you push out content, work, etc. Having this mentality really, I think, ties in the myth that efficiency means the more that you do and the more that you push out, the more success that you're going to have. And this can kind of feel like a double-edged sword or even a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it's really banking your entire identity on output. And when you have this kind of mentality, slowing down and really taking a second to pause and rest can really feel like a threat to that identity. And having a culture that really celebrates that kind of endurance instead of sustainability is literally an equation for exhaustion. And I think because the greater society has this mentality, a lot of attorneys kind of deal with this when it comes to either their clientele or pushing out content, trying to market their firms, and just wanting to reach their general target audience. You can kind of feel like you're constantly at war with how much you have to put out, the kind of content you have to put out into the world, the people you're trying to reach, and just making sure that you're doing what you can to grab their attention because you genuinely want to help the public. And I think a lot of people, not just attorneys, but the general population, could feel like if you stopped performing or even overperforming to the point of exhaustion, would you still feel like your work is valuable? What this leads into is kind of the next point that I really want to get into, of overworking yourself to the point where you think that, or you could feel like at the end of the day, if you're completely exhausted and you're worn out, that could be a sign of a job well done. And that could fall under the umbrella of a concept called performance exhaustion, where you could see it as a credibility, being dedicated, responsive, resilient to the point of burnout is a sign that you've done a really good job, or you've done all that you can do. And I think from my opinion, at least, seeing a lot of attorneys who really identify with this concept is not that they don't think that they don't deserve rest. A lot of, from what I've seen, is that they don't trust that rest will hold everything that they've built. I had a family law attorney that I worked with last year, and he was an attorney that was constantly on the go. He was always available via email, via phone call. He was always in meetings. He was very, very responsive, which is great when you're handling cases for your clients, but it wasn't great when it came to his mental health, his level of exhaustion. There were times where I think he had told me within his law firm he would take a couple months off, which he always felt guilty about because that was time away from his clients, but he also needed that time for rest. And there were multiple times where he had faced burnout, and he was very reactive in his law firm. And when he and I had started working together so I could help him out administratively, his systems were all over the place, and we had to sit down and just kind of talk about why he didn't really have that kind of trust within his systems to do what they needed to do in order to help him really get everything taken care of. And he had such a grip on what he needed to do, how he needed to do it. And it was stemming from that lack of trust, but also gearing into that performance exhaustion of needing to do everything, needed to make sure everything was taken care of, not wanting to disappoint his clients, but also wanting to just make sure he didn't have any lack anywhere. And I think he has a similar story to a lot of other attorneys and employees and even other business owners out there, where you want to rest. You do not want to work yourself to death. especially in today's climate where there's a lot going on, a lot of different things that are trying to grab our attention. You don't want your firm, your job, your boss, etc., to be another thing added to your plate that you feel like is part of that exhaustion. So not just in your firm, but in your life, it's a really good mentality and even idea to create systems that help you slow down. And it's not just slowing down to the point where you can finally breathe and release the control, but it's also slowing down enough to know what your next move will be. And not the fastest one, not the one that's going to grab the attention, but just the next step. I think looking at reframing efficiency to no longer mean speed, but to mean rhythm, to mean consistency, knowing when to move and when to let your systems and the life that you've built hold its own reputation for you instead of you constantly trying to redefine that for yourself. And that could look like taking time out of your day to maybe go for a walk or taking a second just to step outside, delegating a lot of things that you may not have to handle yourself, or it would take you longer than it would be somebody else who would be more experienced in that, using automations and things of that nature to take a lot off of your plate so that you can take a second to just slow down. If you remember from our discussion in the previous episode, we talked about something called the strategic pause, where it's asking yourself, what is the outcome that you are trying to protect by rushing? So with this episode, we're taking that a step further to look at the same framework, but applying it to your energy by asking yourself, what are you proving by staying exhausted? Resting, in whatever capacity or angle that you're looking at it in, it communicates trust. Trust to yourself, trust to your team, trust to your systems, in shared ownership, making sure that you're not the only one carrying everything. When you as an attorney, the owner and leader of your law firm, when you take a second to rest, that gives everybody else permission to do the same. It shifts the culture from survival to sustainability. I think most people, especially in law and how fast-paced it can get, rest can, in some circumstances, looked at as you're surrendering. You're having to admit defeat and admit exhaustion when you should be able to do certain things. You should be able to be on the go. But if we could reframe it so that rest could be seen as a strategy to continue to move forward and not surrender, I think that would be giving ourselves more time, energy, and effort into actually getting to where we want to go. This then leads into another concept called structured stillness, where we're utilizing our workflows and delegation and our team members to help create a practice for stillness. Because essentially those who end up mastering stillness are the ones who are able to maintain precision under pressure, which, working in law, you can feel pretty much every single day. The ones who are able to do so are the ones whose clients trust their judgment, because if you're calm and you're able to communicate that with confidence, your clients will feel that. And because the clients are the ones that are going through these cases and it's affecting their everyday life, they need that foundation of calm in order for them to feel that same level of confidence to continue on with their case. The goal here isn't to ignore deadlines or, take 4 or 5 days to get back to people, but it's to create efficient boundaries while also making sure you're not flying through life from a foundation of control or fear or lack. You are operating from a sense of calm and a sense of confidence in order to work towards and take better intentional steps forward to the goals that you want to achieve. One way that we do this with our clients that we have, the attorneys that, we help on a month-to-month basis, is that we have client monthly meetings. And we sit down and we look at the goals that the attorneys have for the month. We look at everything. We go through all their clients. We look at what their goals are for the month, and we break them down on a weekly basis. And we are able to touch base with them to make sure, hey, we're just holding you accountable here. Have we gotten everything done? Is there anything new that you discovered? Is there, a gap in your workflows? Are there things that you want to do differently? Is there anything you've discovered that you want to be able to shift and change in order to get you to where you want to be at? And this is a way to really group everybody together, make sure everybody's on the same page, but also make sure that we are taking our time to make sure that our practice is here for the long haul. I think something that a lot of attorneys that I've recognized don't really take a second to look at is they have this separation between who they are as a person and how they're running their firm. I think a lot of people tend to see it as two separate things without recognizing that the things that you think about how you operate in your day-to-day life is a reflection of how you're running your law firm. So if you don't have any boundaries, if you're available 24/7, if you are kind of all over the place with your organization, that is going to reflect how you run your law firm and how you help your clients. And people can feel that all the time. You know, Clio releases trends every year, every other year. And one of the biggest themes in the trends that they collect statistics for is that I think it was 2024 was like 84% of attorneys have horrible communication. Either it's not consistent or it just doesn't happen at all. And that is a reflection of people as individuals instead of the systems that they're trying to put in place. It's making a decision and delegating it to people who can help you keep that decision up to date and make sure that they're holding you accountable to do what you need to do. And if you're not able to get to what you've discussed to get to at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, you can go back to those systems and say, okay, where can we do this differently? How can we have better systems in place? What do we need to do in order to make sure we're hitting these goals, we're talking to our clients, and we're getting everything done, and we're not exhausted at the end of the day? So as we wrap up this week's episode, we are going to include some reflection prompts in the show notes and also on the blog if you want to go to our website and read that to help you see and explore where your urgency might be hiding in your day-to-day systems, in your life, and also how to replace that with consistent rhythm instead. So hopefully this was able to help you to see that rest isn't rebellion just because of rebellion's sake. It is restoration. It's how you reclaim your discernment in a world that confuses motion for meaning. If this conversation resonated with you, please feel free to read the full blog on our website, or you can listen to our voiceover version on our YouTube channel. So here on this podcast, we'll keep going deeper behind the concepts, behind the culture, and into the practices that help you lift the burden, lighten the load, and lead with clarity. Until next time, take your pause and lead with clarity. Thanks, everyone.